This meeting is being conducted pursuant to New York State Open Meetings Law, Public Offices Law, Section 100 et sec. For purposes of this meeting, I shall designate Julia Lee as recording secretary. Today we have before us consideration of proposed amendments to two matters. The first is Conflicts of Interest Board Rules, Section 1-11. The second will be Title 53 of the Rules of the City of New York. Turning first to the first matter, are there any comments from the board or staff on the draft of proposed amendment to Board Rule Section 1-11? Okay. All right. Hearing no comments, I call for a motion that the board adopt the recommended amendment to Board Rule Section 1-11 as the final rule. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion for adoption of the amendment to the rule is submitted as the final rule. Has passed. Here we go. Next. We have next before us, consideration of the proposed amendments to Title 53 of the Rules of the City of New York. Are there any comments from the board or staff on the draft of proposed amendments to Title 53 of the Rules of the City of New York? All right, go ahead.
Looking at the red line, Exhibit 4. Okay. The additional language you added in response to one of the comments. So top of page 4. It starts at the bottom of page 3 and goes on to page 4.
Yes.
In determining whether a person is. I think I understood what it meant after I went back and looked at the memo, went back and forth, and after actually conferring with some of my colleagues, we sort of teased it out. But would it be helpful to make it a little bit more clear, maybe referencing whether the scope, it says whether the scope of the agency relationship, maybe specifying exactly what relationship we're referring to? And then with the organization, I assume that's the organization, the nonprofit organization.
Yes.
That's that issue.
Yes.
Like, is the agency
So-
relationship the relationship between the official and the
And the
individual?
The individual, exactly. And so if that relationship encompasses this work with respect to this organization, such as somebody who's appointed by an elected official to a board, then or somebody who serves in a position at this organization because of their city position, for instance, then that is within the scope of the agency relationship, and they're an agent of the elected official at that organization. If it's something that they do completely on their own time, their own private, it's like a college alumni group, to use an example that we've used at previous meetings, where there's no relationship to the city. They just happen
So
to
is
be.
it the overlap?
It's the overlap,
of their
exactly.
city duties with the organization?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
that, I did not read this that way at all. I understand it was intended to clarify, but I didn't get that.
Yes. So I'm happy to.
Does anybody have any suggested language changes?
Not really.
So Chris, so tell us again, I mean, because it may be that if you say it in your own words right now, it might actually come out clearer than what you wrote down. So
Yeah.
tell us again, what, in short, the idea of this addition is to do what?
The idea of the addition is to allay the concern that just because someone has a city position or relationship with an elected official in one area of their professional lives does not encompass all of their work, regardless, all of their public and private work.
For any nonprofit.
For any
in
nonprofit.
any
It doesn't.
area, right.
It doesn't. The fact that somebody has an appointment, whether city employment or appointment to a board, doesn't mean that all of their activities then, for all of their activities, mean that they're an agent of an elected official.
Right.
Can I
So do you want,
suggest-
That makes sense.
yeah, go ahead.
Just maybe this works, maybe a simple, making the implicit explicit maybe.
Okay.
The scope of the agency relationship between the elected official and the person.
I was gonna even say look to whether the individual's relationship to the elected official. Because we're talking about individuals, yeah.
Either or, it's just clarify
Yeah.
exactly what is the relationship we're honing in on.
Absolutely.
The individual's relationship to the elected official encompasses that person's actions with respect to the organization.
So it's still scope of the.
Well, I took out
Yes.
scope.
Took
Took
out
out
scope.
scope altogether.
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
think that was,
that's
I
more-
think that was what
that's
the
not-
puzzle
yeah,
was.
I agree, I think that's more
Okay, so
precise.
the board will look to whether the delete scope of the agency relationship.
Okay.
And insert the individual's relationship to the elected official.
Yes. Encompasses that person's actions with respect to the organization.
I think that's the point, right? And scope was a little amorphous.
Odd word, yeah.
I mean, I understand why you used it to make it broad, but I think if we make it more precise like that.
Absolutely.
That addresses my question.
Okay. Fantastic. No, that, I like that change. That sounds great.
Makes sense.
Is everybody on board with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
I have a question about, I guess on page 3, it's two,
This is an exhibit 4?
exhibit 4
Yeah.
still, two clarifications prior.
Okay.
It says, in reviewing subdivision A, the board will consider, that one?
Yes.
Can you do the similar thing of explaining what is the intent of that clarification, and I'll see if that tracks with how I'm
Okay.
reading this?
So subdivision A provides that, where there's a former employment relationship or former employment as a political consultant, that's considered by the board to be a factor. And so this clarification is to show that the influence of the elected official wanes over time.
So I think there is a word missing, perhaps,
Okay.
factor or indicator. So when I read this, it says the board will consider a former employee, I'm just gonna do ... to be more likely to constitute control. And is it consider the existence of a former employment relationship as a factor that is more likely to constitute control versus the employee himself or herself is control?
Yes, I see the disconnect that's in there, and so,
Maybe if you just eliminated the word constitute.
To consider the former employee to be more likely.
no,
That doesn't do it either, sorry.
in reviewing
What if you use the
subdivision A.
involvement?
Pardon me?
What if you inserted the word involvement? Or will consider the involvement by?
The involvement to be more likely to constitute control by the elected official, the more recent.
Actually, you would probably want to insert relationship. In reviewing subdivision A, the board will consider the relationship between a former employee or
Yes.
political consultant of an elected official to be more likely to constitute control by the elected official the more recently the relationship ended. So maybe all we want to do is insert the two words, the relationship,
Instead of A.
or between consider and A.
Yes,
Consider the relationship between.
Between.
We'll consider the relationship between a former employee or political consultant.
Consider the relationship between A. Right, it's a
And the
factor.
elected official.
and the elected
Okay.
official.
Or either that or the relationship with.
Consider the relationship.
Consider the relationship between former employer and that official
And
to be more likely to constitute a control by the elected official more recently the relationship ended. So I would suggest inserting after the word consider,
Yes.
the words the relationship between, and then after a political consultant of an elected official and that official. So you
Yes.
have the relationship fully established.
Yes.
Okay. So that's modified, so both of these changes are to the comments
com-
to section 3-03.
Yes.
So one is with respect to the comments and subdivisions A and B, that's the one we just did. And the one we did previously looked like it related to subdivision E, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any further questions, comments, or suggestions? Or discussion? Right, hearing no further, I now call for a motion that the board adopt the recommended amendments to Title 53 of the Rules of the City of New York as the final rule, with the following modifications, the two we just discussed, the one with respect to the comment to subdivisions A and B of section 3-03, inserting the words relationship between and that official, and the other modification also to to the comments of 3-03 with respect to subdivision E, clarifying the meaning of scope of the agency relationship.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The motion for adoption of the proposed amendments as presented in the final rule as amended at this meeting has passed. Very good. I think that brings to an end. Oh, okay,
There's
one more
one more.
there is one more item, which also relates to these amendments, to the final rule. Because the city council intended local 181 to take effect beginning on January 1, 2018, there is a proposal for the board to request a waiver of the 30-day waiting period. Any comments regarding this proposal to request a waiver?
Do we have any indication the waiver's forthcoming?
We, in discussions with the law department, they suggested that because of the timing, it would be, well considered, without making any guarantees, of course.
Okay, I now call for a motion that the board request a waiver of the 30-day waiting period pursuant to Charter Section 1043F1. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion to request a waiver of the 30-day waiting period pursuant to Charter Section 1043F1 has passed. There being no further business for consideration pursuant to the Open Meetings Law, this meeting is hereby adjourned.